This is a recipe for a New York City style bagel, and I modified it for my taste. These are the baker's percentages for this recipe. If you're familiar with these, then you'll know what to do with them. Each bagel should weigh roughly 160 grams, so take the final weight of all the bagels you plan to bake and divide by 1.665, and this will give you the weight required for the flour. If you don't use baker's percentages, here is the recipe by weight in grams for 6 bagels. Other items you'll need are a stand mixer, parchment paper, 2 wire racks, and a proofing box. A quick note on the other ingredients I used. The dough improver and the malt syrup I used can be found on Amazon. I put a link to those items in the description of the video. Walmart might have these or versions of these as well if you're looking to buy in store. You can probably omit the dough improver and be all right, but every other ingredient is required for this recipe. Another note on the flour, I used Sir Lancelot from King Arthur, but these only come in 50-pound bags. They do sell a 12 to 13% flour online and in some stores that would also work for this recipe. I think Gold Medal and Dakota also sell high-protein flours as well, but I can't recall the name of those. Okay, let's begin. First of all, get your ingredients weighed and ready to go. Okay, the next step is to heat the water. Microwave it in 20-second increments until it's lukewarm. Next, you're going to scoop about 1/8 of a cup of the warm water and mix it into your yeast along with the tablespoon of granulated sugar. Whisk these together for about 20 seconds and then set them aside to proof for about 5 to 10 minutes. We want the yeast to look frothy. If it doesn't after 10 or 15 minutes, you might need to get new yeast because it's probably dead. Whisk your kosher salt, dough improver, honey, and the malt syrup into the rest of your warm water until it's dissolved. While you're waiting for your yeast to prove, get your proofing box and line this container with parchment paper. This is a crucial step and you should not skip it. The bagels will be in the fridge overnight and this parchment paper will keep the bottoms from getting a weird texture. Once the yeast is nice and foamy, pour the liquid mixture, your flour, and the yeast into a stand mixer and set it on a medium-low setting for 10 minutes. The dough should have a nice smooth texture after it's done mixing. When the dough is mixed, you can move it to your cutting board or countertop and form it into a nice ball. Grab a knife or a dough cutter and split the dough into 2 equal pieces. From here, try to cut 3 equal portions from each half. Check the weights of all the pieces and ensure each portion weighs about 160 grams. Shape each portion of dough into a small log shape and place them together, then cover in plastic wrap and let them rest for about 5 minutes. Now we're going to roll the bagels out. Take one of your dough portions and begin rolling it out with your hand from the center. Use your fingers and flat palms to continue stretching the dough out until it's about 13 or 14 inches long. Try to work quickly because if the dough dries out on the surface, it makes locking the bagel harder to do. When your dough is stretched out, place one end in the middle of your palm and wrap the rest of the dough around the back of your hand and push the ends together. From here, use your fingers and flat palm to roll forward and push the ends together. This will lock the ends together and give the bagel a nice round shape. If you happen to roll one out and it doesn't work out, you can simply use a knife and cut it or pinch it off and just kind of re-roll it out and try again. Place all the rolled bagels into your proofing box and cover them. Let them rest on the counter for between 20 and 30 minutes. If it's warm in your house, 20 minutes should do. If it's cold, I would go for 30 minutes. Once the proof stage is complete, you can transfer the covered bagels to your refrigerator. These need to be refrigerated for at least 12 hours and up to 24 hours, but preferably not longer than that. After the overnight ferment, you can put a large pot of water on the stove and get it boiling. While the pot heats up, preheat your oven to 475 degrees. Once the water is at a boil, take a spoonful of your malt syrup and dissolve it into the water. This will help flavor the bagel, and it also helps seasoning stick to the outside. Drop your bagels into the water one at a time and stir to prevent them from sticking to the bottom. You want to boil these for about 1 minute on each side. The bagels should float as soon as they hit the water, or at least not sink right to the bottom. If they do sink, then your proof stage wasn't long enough. Next time you make these, add 10 minutes and see if that helps. After the bagels are done boiling, use a slotted spatula or a spider to fish them out, and place them on a wire rack so the excess water can drain off. I like to flip the bagels over and use a paper towel to get any excess moisture off of the bottom. Once the bagels feel tacky, you can season them. The best way to do this is to put your seasonings on a plate and lightly press each side of the bagel into the seasoning. Place the bagels on a parchment-lined wire rack. Try to leave about 1 inch of space between each one if you can, and bake for between 10 and 15 minutes. You want a good bit of color on these, so keep checking them until they look ready. When they look like they have enough color, pull them out of the oven and let them cool on a cutting board or a wire rack for about 30 minutes. Once they're fully cooled, you can put them in an airtight container in your pantry for 4 to 5 days or in the fridge for up to a week.